start the 4B board meeting for November 12th, Tuesday, 2019 at 6:32 p.m. All members are present. We will move to B, public forum. If there's anybody in the public that would like to come forward and speak, they may do so at this time. No one in the public forum. What, oh, you're coming up? I didn't see a movement. We try to move as fast as possible.
I'll keep it short. Board members, thank you all for your time. I know this is a huge commitment. I truly appreciate all y'all do. I live Ted Mays, 236 Mallard Drive. The interesting thing I have is the Master Trail Parks Plan. I know y'all have a big say in how it runs, and it's my understanding in April it's time to revisit it and get updated some. And I request that y'all potentially look at Stony Creek Phase 5C Tract 3. It's approximately 80 acres located between Nance Road and Tripp Road. The previous developer, Green Brick, had promised a lot of the people on Robin Ridge and all of them, they were going to connect to the future Master Parks Trail Plan. Well, they gave y'all a zinger, and instead of putting a trail where the trail was supposed to go, they ran a water main line that would connect to the next cul-de-sac. So what you're left with on my property is a 260-foot long trail to nowhere. Literally, the Mallard Drive has a trail, runs right through my property, and the builder even had told me when I was buying the lot, hey, this is going to connect. You know, it was the first lie they told me. Lots of lies throughout that process, needless to say. But basically, there is no definite future that trail or how long it's going to be will ever connect to what's on the agenda today. That is literally going to be less than a quarter of a mile away. Like you just could sit there on the trail and look and go, oh, there's going to be a beautiful 12-foot wide trail right there that the kids could go straight there to school. But something also I would like just to kind of plant a seed is, after talking to Mr. Jackson previously about what is allowed and what's not allowed with a planned development, if the next developer doesn't want to change or address the zoning issues, it's kind of hard for the town to ask for land donations or trail donations. Well, that 80 acres is all zoned estate 1 acre lots. That's why it hasn't been developed. No one wants to buy it because it's the most expensive to develop. And after last night's council meeting, I mean, it's going to be pretty clear. Anybody who wants to develop that land, they're going to have a hell of a time trying to convince all of those people with estate lots, 1 acre lots, that it's going to be, zone it anything other than what it already is. So that said, it's going to be almost impossible for that developer who does develop that to make that trail system ever connect. Unless you just honestly have to see the way it's lined up for that corner lot on the Master Douglas plan. However, with the trees that were all destroyed in our neighborhood when they just did that development, that was one of the reasons why they couldn't stop the trees from being destroyed, was a drainage issues / town has no recourse. So if you adjust the Master Trail Parks plan to potentially run between new developments and existing developments, you can almost create buffers and save as many trees in between these phases as you can, just by saying, hey, this is where the town can honestly lay it out to go, hey, we can create buffers that I just know that Ms. Bradford would have loved to have that buffer.
I didn't ask him to come.
No, but I know, and it just, because having met the developer, like the president of the, And I know that he's had some experiences with some of the, council members throughout there getting that phase done. So I was not shocked one bit when I saw what they can do and manipulate. But if the town has the ability to decide, hey, this is where we would like to see our trail systems, and we can protect existing homes. I'm not saying development's going to happen. Trust me, I'm totally on board with development happening. But if we can almost create buffers without having to give away the farm, it would just be something I would want to plant that seed in y'all's minds for the future. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
What was your name again? Sorry.
Ted Mays.
Ted Mays. Thank you.
All right, we will close the public forum, move on to item C, public hearing. Open or continue public hearing, consider testimony and other information provided, close public hearing, and take necessary action with respect to the following. 1, hold a public hearing, discuss and consider the acquisition of real property, approximately 73 acres of land known as Rails to Trails.
So we do have an executive session on this item as well.
This is
Item
just
14.
for,
Right,
to
so,
mention it.
yeah, so, but, yeah, you could hold a public hearing now so that you have an opportunity for public input. But I'd recommend waiting to take action until after the executive session so we can
Okay.
discuss this in further detail.
All right.
But this is a great opportunity to take input just on the project itself.
Okay. We'll open it up to if there's any input from anybody.
Aaron Marco. Ted Mays, 236 Mallard Drive. Buy the land. It's a good investment.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on. We'll move on to D, discussion and action items.
Close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing. And now we'll move on to D. Discuss, consider, and act upon the regular meeting minutes for October 8th, 2019. And, yeah. Are there any comments for the meetings? For the meeting, the minutes of the meeting? Any comments? I take a motion to accept it.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Motion made by member White, seconded by member Van Bessem. All those in favor? Passed unanimous. Move on to item 3. Discuss, consider, and act upon the October 2019 financial reporting and related items.
All right, so we've got 2 months of reporting to review tonight. Staff has prepared an update to the September 30th financials, and that is because of the actual sales tax revenue versus the previous accrual amount. So that's the only change. And our final fund balance as of 9/30, well, I'll say final, it still was going to need to, we're still going to need to review it one more month when we get one more month of actual sales tax revenue in. So for now, our 9/30 adjusted fund balance, I should say, is $3,126,678. So as far as October is concerned, the only income for the month, or the income for the month was $72,692.43, and our only expenditures were our monthly payroll and maintenance expenses, and a couple of town park maintenance expenses as well. So our fund balance at the end of October is $3,191,940. And I did not have any additional questions for staff.
Any questions, comments? Can I get a motion to accept the October 2019 financial reporting and related items? Motion by member Eldridge, seconded by member Weiss. All those in favor? Passed unanimous.
Just one question, and we've asked it in the past, but are we ever gonna be able to tell year over year, month over month, to try to determine as businesses are coming in, what sales tax revenue we're gaining from like Quick Trip, for example, or when Panda Express goes in? We were told we couldn't get specific to a location, but it seems like if it was,
There's probably a little bit of a lag, but you could probably see some trends.
I'll let Phyllis chime in as well. That is correct, that typically you don't see business-specific data. But one of our key performance indicators, I'm assuming you know this, but I'm going to say it just in case, all the departments have KPIs that they report to the council on a monthly basis. And from this department, one of those KPIs is a trend analysis of the sales tax revenue. So, I mean, I think for me, that's one thing that I really noticed was there was a few months last year where sales tax dropped off, concerned me, we were watching it closely. I think that it was, my assessment was kind of the wrapping up of construction at Lineage and wrapping up the construction at QT, because you have the sales tax generated off construction. But then we had that lag created, we hadn't started seeing the revenue from QT. So that, it's a 2-month lag. So we kind of thought last month and this month we'd start seeing that. So, I mean, that's the level of detail that, I'm looking at to see, okay, where is it dipping? Where is it coming on? What are we adding in those periods of time? As kind of part of my answer to that, one of the things I had asked of Tracy before she left was to do a sales tax audit where we hire an external auditor to go in and look at who's paying and what they're paying and does it look right. And particularly because of the construction in our community, how that works, I thought it might be a beneficial project. So she was in the process of getting quotes and we've gotten a couple of those. So that's something that I think might be beneficial to us moving forward as well. There's also some subscription services that will do a little more in-depth analysis. Where's Liz? We looked at a couple of these as well that, kind of does some analysis of all the data that's out there to help us make sense and use it strategically. So those are all things that, I think moving forward we can look at and collaborate on.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't think we've actually gotten a copy of the trend analysis, so is that
No,
something that
and
can be provided?
I was going to say that is something we can include with the financials each month is a copy of that analysis that Susan was referring to. And that will, although there is no detail that we can provide to go with it, you will at least see how those sales tax receipts are fluctuating from month to month.
That really beneficial.
No.
Those are also online.
Yeah.
If you don't want to wait to get them, they're online.
Well, if you look at them online too, it's kind of interesting because, we're still, I would say kind of in our infancy in terms of our key performance indicators, but we're getting there. And I love looking at, if you start drawing the correlations between, if you look at Doug Keys, the building inspector's performance, key performance indicators, how many building inspections, the value of the building inspections that we're doing, what's commercial, what's residential. It's very telling, and then you start seeing those relationships between, the sales tax and those numbers and what's coming on board. And I think when you start looking at all the KPIs together, that story starts to unfold a little bit. So I think there was one day, a couple of weeks ago, he did 30 inspections in one day, which is, for one guy, a lot. So.
And where is that? Do you know which page it is?
On the home page at the top, if you go to, I think it says your departments. It's right next to your government. And if you'll just hover over it, they're in alphabetical order and it'll say key performance indicators. If you just click on it, they're listed by month.
I think the first, I don't know how many pages is financial, kind of our financial report, but if you keep scrolling, you'll start getting to pages that have 4 blocks. So before Excel charts on each page. So each department has one of those, everything from police, number of calls, the fire department, response time, number of calls each month. So you can see the trend. Are they going up, are they going down? The step that we're all working on right now is benchmarking those key performance indicators with other communities so we know how we compare. You know, it helps with staffing, it helps with, you know, a lot of decisions, strategic decisions we're trying to make right now. So.
And for quick reference, EDC should be the second page from the bottom.
It should be on the top. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, discuss, consider, and act upon the reconstruction of Vineyard Park parking lot.
Burton, do you want to take this? You want me to?
Just an update?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I guess it's just really an update on this item. I actually, this Thursday, Lyle Jenkins, the town engineer, and I are going to sit down. We're going to work on an RFP for this project. I was left kind of a shaded map, a section that you all were interested in getting quotes on. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
And so with the dollar amount being what we think it's going to be, we're going to develop RFP, scope of work, things like that, put it through a sealed bid process for that section specifically. So, yeah, we're meeting Thursday, and hopefully we'll get something put together, then we'll get it sent to legal.
I recall we looked at, I think it was the green shaded section and doing 6-inch asphalt.
Right.
With all the times we've been crossing paths lately, a few of us discussed, not knowing necessarily what's going on with the fire department long term and everything, but if that area, if the 6 inches is inadequate with fire equipment and trash trucks and stuff, we approved basically a dollar amount is what we voted on. If the city, I don't know if they'd be amenable, from the general fund was amenable to split the difference, and it balanced out to do it concrete so it could not work for the heavy traffic as well. We'd have to discuss it again, but I think that would be amenable as well. So I don't know if it's worth getting the RFP for both routes and then going with whatever gets approved by the various parties.
We could probably set that up. We could probably do like a base bid with the 6-inch asphalt and then add alternate with the addition.
Burton, was the green area, because she too showed me that map, was the green area just the parking lot in the park? And then the additional area would be kind of the entry path that runs between the fire department parking lot and the park parking lot?
Exactly.
So you're focused right now on the area that is just truly contained to the parking lot for the
Right.
park?
Yeah.
And then one of the other things Lyle and I talked about initially was another alternate would be to do concrete in the entrances, at least where you go into that green shaded area, just because of that turning radius, and if a dump truck or a garbage truck or something like that, the turning is what's going to chew that asphalt up. So getting a bid on concrete might sustain that a little bit longer. So that was something else we talked about. Any other questions?
No?
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 5. Discuss, consider, and act upon amending the performance agreement by and between Sunnyvale Hospitality LLC and Sunnyvale 4B Development Corporation.
So I did meet with Derek Saucer just to get some clarification, and make sure that I understood what each one of these contracts was, and he thinks they'll actually be done much quicker, but I think she put in April, if I'm remembering, into the date.
I think it was March 1st.
Okay, good. So, but he feels like they'll be completed much earlier than that, probably before the end of the year. But I think it was to be safe to not have to come back repeatedly and do that. So my understanding is that the first contract, I mean, you all probably even know this better than I do, but just in case it was foggy for you, the first was like the co-create aspect. Then second, item 6 was Hope Copy, and then item 7 was actually Derek Salzer's the building itself, with the breakdown of the 3.
One thing, a question I had was, one of them went out through 2025, which was 6 years, and the other ones went through 2024. And so that's why didn't know if that was correct, going back to the beginning, or?
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know the history of when they were originally
But
created.
the amended change really pushed it out.
And it was, the time frame, the
The-
total time frame was
The end
much different.
time frame of
than
one
the
of them,
original.
correct, went out to the end of December 2025, I think. And all the other ones were November 2024.
Let me look at that real quick before we vote on this.
I read them all, but I don't have them in front of me.
I have-
And I've got one edit as well, I think.
This is the-
So I thought most everything we did was 5 years.
Let's
I
just
mean,
think.
they made it effective.
Yeah, so it looks like it was longer to begin with, from what it looks like.
And is that the whole project, or was that the?
This
That
was
might have
for
been
Hope.
based- that might have been based on how we set up the performance.
Okay. I just
Yeah, so I
wanted
mean,
to make
that's
sure
what it
that
looks
was
like
correct.
to me,
It was
that
the
it was
proper
always
adjustment.
longer,
Okay.
with adding time, and just push it.
So I had one question, on the one for Sunnyvale Hospitality LLC, section 4B, maybe this was intentional, I don't know, but it's the paragraph addressing the CO. That says March 2nd, and all the other dates say March 1st.
Can you direct me to a page number at the bottom?
Page 35 of our packet, page 4 of the agreement. Section 4B.
Or would you like that date to be March 2nd? We can make that edit before having them signed.
Well, no, the red line version says March 2nd, and I don't know if that was intended to be March 1st, like the other
Yeah,
paragraphs.
B and C.
Or is that intended to be one day after the other dates?
I don't know what the intention is, but we can change it.
I want to change it if it's right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not make this edit, so I don't know what the intention was, why the dates are different. It looks like the original dates were all the same date, so my guess is it's an error and we're
Yeah,
having
and
to
it
change
looks
it.
like the other agreements all say March 1st, but the paragraphs are a little bit different.
I mean, I don't think there's any reason to have this staggered date. There's nothing logical that jumps to my mind, and the original dates were all the same. So
Okay.
I think it makes sense to correct
Yeah, and I
those.
would say that March 2nd was supposed to be a March 1st.
Yeah, good catch. Any other changes on these 3 items?
We need a motion for this then?
Yes, each individual one.
Can we,
Well, we
one
need
at
to
a
do
time?
one, and then you'll have to go to the next agenda item. I think they're separate agenda items.
Yeah.
And you need to allow for public comment for each.
We don't normally have any public. Just move on.
Garnish for Luke.
Sorry.
All right, so I'll move to public forum on this item. If there's anybody in the public that would like to come forward and speak, they may do so at this time. No one's coming forward, we'll close the public forum. We'll move on to item number 6. This-
We have
what?
to-
Oh, yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the second amended Sunnyvale Type B performance agreement for Sunnyvale Hospitality LLC as presented with one change to section 4B.
Motion been made by member Bradford, seconded by member Anthony. All those in favor for the changes? Passed unanimous. Move on to item number 6, discuss, consider, and act upon amending the performance agreement by and between Hope Coffee, Inc. and the Sunnyvale 4B Development Corporation. We will move to open the public forum on this item. If there's anyone that would like to come forward, they may do so. No one's coming forward. We will close the public forum. Is there any questions on this item?
I move that we approve the second amended Sunnyvale Type B performance agreement for Hope Coffee Inc. As presented.
Motion made by member Bradford, seconded by member Torres. All those in favor? Passed unanimous. Move on to item number 7, discuss, consider, and act upon amending the performance agreement by and between Hope Development Partners 1 LLC and the Sunnyvale 4B Development Corporation. I will open the public forum. If there's anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak on this, they may do so at this time. No one coming forward, we will close the public forum. Can I get a motion to accept this?
Motion.
Motion made by member Eldred, seconded by member Van Vessen to approve this agreement between Hope Development Partners and Sunnyvale 4B. All those in favor? Passed unanimous. Move on to item number 8. Discuss, consider, and act upon electing members to the events committee.
So this is kind of a retroactive item. There were 3 people who came forward after we really even had done the original appointment. So we're just going back and adding these 3 members. We actually already had our first meeting of the events subcommittee, went, I think, very well. And Ms. Anthony is representative. I know you couldn't be at that first meeting, just the time wasn't good. But, you know, we had a pretty good turnout. We went over all of our upcoming events, the Veterans Day event, the Turkey Trot, the Christmas event that's coming up. Got a lot of good suggestions from the committee. We also then talked about establishing a events calendar so that, you know, even the school events and other community events could all be put in one place. That's been done, and I know the school sent their December event schedule to us, and it was being put up on the website, I think, today. And then the third item we discussed is other new events that we might want to add as a community. So everybody kind of brainstorms some other events that the committee might want to themselves plan. So it was a great first meeting. We have some follow-up to do, and then we're meeting again next month, and it's already on the calendars. So these 3 applicants just need to be appointed to that subcommittee.
One question I had was I believe it's the first one, Mr. John. And there's application put in there, stuff about improving developments, and it didn't necessarily match the application, so I didn't know if it was clear what he was applying for.
Yeah, and it's possible that there was some confusion because there were 3 committees that were open at the time. One of them was the Code Enforcement Committee, the Census Committee, and this committee, so it could be that there was some confusion, but I have communicated with him.
Okay, so as long as they knew what they were signing up for.
Do any of us? Do any of us? Can I get a motion to accept the new recommended appointment of Edison John, I'll skip the other name, and Stanley John.
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by member Van Vesten, seconded by member Weiss. All those in favor, passed unanimous. Move on to item number 9, discuss Glacier project update.
Yes. Excuse me, sorry about that. So I felt like we had kind of I wasn't clear on where we're at in terms of moving forward. So we had a meeting with David McCaskell.
McCaskill.
Last week, just about the status of several projects. This was one of them. And the last committee meeting, I think we talked about getting quotes on a barn just to see what the prices were, like a pretty scaled down, not super fancy structure, but something that would at least house the horses so that we could proceed with demolition of the structures that are currently there. So they have some pricing. It's an engineering estimate, but one of the things that we did talk to our city engineer about was, do we have to be ADA compliant or not? And I know that seems like a duh question, but because it's not technically open to the general public, we were kind of questioning it. But also, as a municipality, sometimes, under some uses, we don't have to meet all the codes. So we're just trying to get some clarity about which ones would we have to, which ones would we not. He came back and said, yes, you do need to be ADA compliant. And the biggest concern with that is I think we had already planned to do that with the barn, but we're thinking more about the parking lot and, how many spots are we going to need and what will be involved with making that ADA compliant. So we brought that up to David. Burton was at the meeting. And what I've asked him to do is, to me, the most logical next step would be to go ahead and issue an RFP, or so that we know what is really the price going to be for a structure of this size. Because I think there needs to probably be a joint meeting between council and this board to discuss the cost of that, what the plans are. But to do that, I really feel like we need to have a true cost involved with what needs to happen. So I'd asked David to provide us with the document of what his engineering estimates are right now, including the ADA parking. I also asked him to include his estimates of what it would cost to do just a smaller structure, like a half size, like a 10-horse structure. I know that's not the direction we're headed, but I think it's information we need to know if the other size comes back in a scale that's not something that's palatable for you all or for the council, so that we at least in the same process have that piece of information. And so I also asked him to provide me with a cost estimate for doing engineered drawings that we could use to go out to bid. So I had told him that we were meeting tonight and that I would love to have that to present to you all, but I did not receive any of that information from him, but I expect that it's forthcoming. So I'm happy to discuss, if we can have discussion on this item. We can't do any action because I don't think we put that, but if you have feedback for me on the status, particularly those that are on that subcommittee, I'm very open, but I'm just trying to get it off the ground and keep it moving.
Well, I think we were supposed to have a joint meeting with council, but it got taken off the calendar, scheduling conflicts or what have you. But I do like your idea of having some pricing before we have that meeting. Otherwise, we're just going to have another meeting to talk about it in theory, and I just feel like that's probably a waste of time at this point.
And just feedback on that, I think some of the council members felt that it made sense if we were going to move aggressively towards backfilling this position to have that meeting, because it was not just that subject matter, there was other matters. I think they just, almost like a strategic planning meeting to get everybody just on the same page. I'm not saying that you're not, but just to make sure everybody's on the same page strategically on some of these major projects that it made sense to try to wait until this position was backfilled so that everybody kind of moves forward together. But I did feel like having, this level of information when we face that discussion would help.
On the information you asked him to update, did that include the fencing and the paddock and all that kind of stuff, or just the building?
Now, truly just the building as a phase step one. Ms. Anthony, jump in anytime, because I know you're part of this.
Right, no, I mean, I
Yeah.
remember the phased approach, but I was just
Yeah.
curious, because if you don't do the fencing and stuff, well, we gotta do it, doesn't make any difference.
Well, I think the committee felt, again, please correct me, that, the fencing is holding theoretically the horses in right now. So it's not the critical thing. The critical thing is where they're being housed, just from a code standpoint and, safety standpoint. And so I think that's why the committee was prioritizing the actual structure first, because we could build it. It could be built on the grounds without tearing down the other buildings, so that the construction could take place without displacing the horses. Then after the construction was done, then the current housing could be torn down. So no displacement of the horses, but the number one priority was to address the housing. So, and then, we could then address fencing, paddocks, all the other items that were in that master plan. Am I getting this? Okay.
Yeah, that's true. We
I actually went out to Mueller Buildings, and I got a price of around 60, anywhere from 60 to 65,000, just for the building.
For the material.
Material, yes, they drop it, you put it together, so.
I think we need to prioritize the fencing a little more than we are right now, because a horse got out last week in my yard. I put him back in. So the fence is falling apart. It's old, it's rusting, it's just pushing over. The horses are leaning on it, get the grass on the side of it, and they're pushing it over.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say that we definitely, the fence may be an issue, but because we've had, the town is concerned about the additional projects that have come up this year that are affecting their budget, and so just from a financial perspective, putting the building first, and that doesn't mean we don't want to move quickly on to other things as well, but if we can get at least one part of it moving, I think that's important to just get the ball rolling, really.
I guess when I said fencing, I'm not talking, you're talking about the true fence around the perimeter. I'm talking about whatever it's called, because I'm not a horse person, right around
Paddocks and things like
the
that.
paddocks and stuff, because if you build a new building,
Yeah, that's the
then you
question.
bulldoze the old one,
Mhm.
they gotta have a contained area to be outside the building without being out in the pasture. So that's why I was asking if those sections were included. Maybe, I can wait until we see the full
Yeah, I'll look at it.
plan, but it wouldn't hurt to bid the whole thing out and break it into the phases.
And when we get those quotes back, I think it's important for the committee to meet first and review them before going into a joint session or a meeting with 4B, which is what we did last time. Just kind of creates chaos because we haven't had a chance to review it and take out things we're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
So I think that would be in our favor if we could review them first, edit them to what we think is feasible or what we want to present, and then have joint meetings.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback. So I'm hoping that this next week, he'll be providing me with at least that preliminary information. And then I'll work with Lyle to help translate all that into a big package. And maybe we'll even meet before we go out to bid. Because I think once we go out to bid, the bids are the bids. So what's important is getting what do we want to bid on right. So let me try to schedule maybe something for next week or the following week with the subcommittee. And I may need to reach out to you to make sure I have all those names.
Can I make a public comment on this? Is that okay?
Yes.
We're going to open up the public forum at this time over this item.
10 Mays, 236 Mallard Drive. Some of the questions I have just from livestock background, and it's publicly owned, municipality owns this, fencing, safety. I have a landowner that he has fencing about like what you all have, His cows got out, hit an 18-wheeler, hit it. He got sued, and the only thing that saved him was he had livestock insurance. Does our town have any kind of livestock insurance that if one of these horses get out of a public property, are we liable legally from a lawsuit standpoint? Because I'm not going to get into subsidizing private people's horses to be, that's a whole other subject altogether, but can the town not possibly say, well, for legal liability purposes, until this fence is fixed and everybody gets together and meets on this to come up with a plan, you give the owners of the horses the option to repair the fence out of their own money, or they remove the horses so that there's no safety hazard to me or my family driving down the road. Because if I hit one of these horses in my little Prius, someone's going to die. Someone's going to get sued. I'm just letting y'all, I mean, if you don't have the right insurance, I'm telling you right now, it's a matter of time. You have a ticking time bomb. I really, really, really hope that's going to be covered. It's just scary.
Thank you. All right, we will close the public hearing. Move on to item number 10, discuss future agenda items and events.
Usually that's where you tell me what.
Look, we've had so much on our plate, we are not putting anything else out there until we accomplish some of these goals. Just to let you know.
I'm all for that.
So are we.
You did have somebody who requested to speak on this item.
On the glacier?
No, on item 10.
Oh, okay. We'll open up the public forum at this time for this item number 10.
Thank you. Good evening. Josh Sandler, 452 San Gabriel Way here in Sunnyvale. I specifically wanted to address 4B regarding the Rails to Trails program and initiative. I apologize. I realized that was agenda item number 1. I broke many speed limit to get here, and I was still unsuccessful, so I apologize. I just wanted to tell 4B, I know that I've been in contact with several 4B commissioners regarding this issue related to the Stone Canyon HOA's position on the Rails to Trails initiative. Some of you may know it, some of you may not. I think we've had, wanted to report to the entire 4B Commission a very fruitful and successful negotiation and meeting with 4B, with town council members, and with town staff with respect to the Stone Canyon HOA's position and concerns with respect to the actual trail running through the Stone Canyon neighborhood. Lots of concerns with respect to property owners and their properties who would be specifically abutting that trail. We walked the neighborhood once we learned of how that was planned to proceed in terms of the actual map, and we found 100% agreement, homogeneous, of concerns regarding privacy and property values with respect to those properties abutting that trail. I'm frankly not here to make any points or to raise any concerns, but to report back to the full commission that we believe we have achieved a workaround, which I hope that for purposes of future business will come before the council and also 4B. It's my understanding that it will. That workaround will include, but not necessarily be limited to, the notion of an ordinance that I believe would need to be supported by 4B that supports the notion of going, obviously proceeding with the Rails to Trails program, but not proceeding through and cutting through so close to homeowners, backyards, properties, et cetera, in these specific neighborhoods, most namely Stone Canyon, for which I can speak for and represent. So that ordinance will basically encourage a workaround to continue with the initiative, because we do think that the initiative is laudable. We want to support this initiative. We want to support trails for our town. At the same rate, too, we don't necessarily want it so close to our backyards. So we believe we've reached a compromise. I'm very happy to answer any questions that any specific commissioners have I just wanted to generally report that back and put on the public record that that is my understanding as to the agreement that we have reached. I have not seen a draft of that ordinance, but I'm working in close contact with the town manager to see that, and something that ultimately we believe that the Stony Canyon will and should support with respect to that ordinance. And that will enable us to continue to support the initiative. So if anybody has any specific questions, happy to do that. Sorry to, again, be late on this particular agenda item, but certainly wanted to inform you as to where we are progress-wise and report back that in this situation, there were concerns, and the system, I believe, worked, and we're all happy, and the town is better for it. So happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions?
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we close the public forum. Move on to item E, executive session. Recess into executive session pursuant to Chapter 551, Subchapter D of the Texas Government Code, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberation in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with a third person. The Lake Ray Hubbard SES Rail Spur. We're going to do all three of these, right?
Yes.
Number 12, which is section 551.087, economic development, to deliberate the offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect, project AEC. Number 13, section 551.074, personnel matters, to deliberate the appointment and employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, economic development director. It is 7:19 p.m.
I need a motion.
Yeah, you gotta go to the.
Can we get a motion to move into executive session? Motion by Member Weiss, seconded by Member Torres. All those in favor? Passed unanimously.
Thank you.